Literary Concepts 11 this week is talking about rhyme scheme. And before we can talk about rhyme scheme, we really kind of need to talk about rhyme as well. It maybe seems like one of those things we don't need to spend a lot of time on because, hey, you read Dr. Seuss. You know all about rhyme, right? Well, maybe, maybe not. There's a couple things that we want to focus on when we talk about rhyme, and that starts now. So the first thing we're going to talk about are the different types of rhyme. There's kind of two types that we want to talk about. One is structure and one is style. And so the structure part of it just refers to where the words fall in the poem. So in the case of rhyming words falling at the end of the line, we call that end rhyme. And that's pretty straightforward. That's the stuff that we're used to. We see it all the time. Usually when we look at rhyming poetry, this is what we're looking at. So again, here, one and done are the words that rhyme. They happen at the end of the line. It's called end rhyme. It's easy to remember too. The other one is pretty easy to remember as well. It's internal rhyme, kind of like inside the line. The thing is that when we talk about rhyme scheme, internal rhyme doesn't play a huge role because really when we talk about rhyme scheme, we're only focused on what's happening at the end of the line. But in the example here, away and day happen in the same line of poetry, and they rhyme. When we talk about style, there's kind of two that we want to focus on. The first one is the big one, which is perfect rhyme. So we say that these are two words where the final stressed vowel and all of the sounds that come after it are identical. So in the case of hug and bug, we've got pretty short rhyming words here, but it's that ug sound. And then at the end of the kindle and spindle, we've got several more sounds that are happening. But again, they rhyme, so that's perfect rhyme. That's what we look for. When we talk about general rhyme, there's kind of three categories that we look at. The first one is imperfect rhyme. So this is rhyme where the stressed and unstressed syllable is different, like the sound is slightly different. So usually if you're having a word that is more than one syllable long and you're trying to rhyme it with something shorter, then yeah, that's where you're going to kind of run into some problems. So wing and caring, those are two that are considered imperfect rhyme, and reflect and subject. If you listen closely, they rhyme, but it's a little bit off. So it's imperfect. Slant rhyme, on the other hand, is one that a lot of people tend to call imperfect rhyme because they're not really rhyming words. They just have similar sounds. So we also call these near rhyme or oblique rhyme. So like it says there, they don't rhyme exactly, but some of the sounds are similar. So like bridge and grudge. These are words that could maybe pass as rhyming words, but again, you hear them, they're not perfect. Syllabic rhyme is the last one, and like it says here, they have a similar sounding last syllable, but without a stressed vowel. So in the case of bottle and fiddle, again, there's a little bit of a rhyme going on, but again, the vowels and some of those other sounds aren't the same. The same with cleaver and the infamous silver, the word that doesn't rhyme. You can kind of rhyme silver with other words that end in ver. So again, these are all examples of general rhyme. They're not perfect, they get us close, and they work for all intents and purposes if you're writing a poem or a song and you can't quite find that perfect word to rhyme things with. So taking all of this stuff into consideration, where the words show up and what words are being used and how closely they rhyme to each other, that takes us to rhyme scheme. So what rhyme scheme is it's a pattern of rhythm or rhyming words at the end of a line of poetry. So the example here, you can kind of see what we mean. The people along the sand all turn and look one way. They turn their back on the land. They look at the sea all day. As long as it takes to pass, a ship keeps raising its hull. The wetter ground like glass reflects a standing gull. So if we look at the ends of each of these lines, you have sand and land rhyming with each other, way and day. And then in the second part of this poem, pass and glass, hull and gull. Because these other words at the bottom don't rhyme with anything at the top, then we start to kind of classify those. So sand is A, land is A, way and day are B, C, we give C to pass and glass, and we give the D to hull and gull. And that's our rhyme scheme, A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D. All right? Seems pretty straightforward, I hope. Again, you're looking at the ends of the lines and trying to figure out the rhyme scheme. So let's try one on our own. As I drew nearer to the end of all desire, I brought my longing's ardor to a final height. Just as I ought, my vision becoming pure, entered more and more the beam of that high light that shines on its own truth. From then my seeing became too large for speech, which fails at a sight. So again, that wasn't a great reading of that. But if you take a look at the ends of the lines, you'll see some that jump out right away, right? We have sight, light, and height. We also have desire, pure, and then there's that weird seeing in there that doesn't fit at all. Desire and pure, that's one of those where it's close, but not quite. It's kind of that slant rhyme or that imperfect rhyme that's taking place. So if we have to give this a scheme, think about this for a second. What would you say? Well, we can say that height, light, and sight all kind of work, but they're not the first word. Height is the second word, so that's going to be B. If we take a look at desire and pure, if we say that those kind of rhyme, we can say that the rhyme scheme here is going to be A, B, A, B, C, B. And again, it's looking at the ends of those lines and looking for where that rhythm happens. So to review, we want to first recognize the type and structure of the rhyme. So again, is it happening at the end of the line? Is it happening in the middle of the line? The other thing that we need to look at is it near rhyme? Is it perfect rhyme? We want to figure out what type of rhyme is being used because that's going to affect our rhyme scheme. Once we do that, we can begin looking for the patterns. So like in the last example that we looked at, ABA and BCB, that's that rhythm. So we would expect the next one to be CDC, and so on and so forth. So once we do that, we want to write them down, mark it up as much as we can, and then that's it. We figured out the rhyme scheme. Why does any of this matter? Well, rhyme scheme and rhyme, for that matter, kind of help us establish that rhythm. So when we read, it helps us read clearly and it helps us stay fluent. The other thing that rhyme and rhythm can do is it can help establish a mood. Something that's more sing-songy, like Dr. Seuss, is going to make us feel upbeat and happy. But something that's a little bit slower, has a slower rhythm, like Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, well, that kind of gives us a feeling of something kind of sad and dark. And that's kind of what rhyme scheme intends to do. So being able to recognize this is going to make you a better reader of poetry, but it's also going to make you a better reader of all texts because you're able to recognize mood through the words that are being used.